I'm sure you guys know about the BITE model, BITE from Stephen Hassan. It's really focused around cults and high control. But behavioral control, intellectual control, thought control, and emotion control. It is amazing the amount of conditioning that those controls will put on someone. The thought stopping techniques. Oh, I'm really angry. Oh, nope, I shouldn't be angry because that's what God wouldn't want that. And I'll get spanked if I do anything out of control or out of line. Well, you've just self-policed. And after a while, that's all you do is you self-police no one has to even control you anymore. You don't even need a predator around. You've become your own predator.
Welcome back to Prey vs. Predator, part 2 of our amazing interview with Lindsey Williams, the firecracker, the spicy woman from the docuseries.
The spicy meatball.
Yes, from the docuseries Shiny Happy People, Duggar Family Secrets. Lindsey Williams, we are so happy to have you back again.
Trigger warning, there are going to be sensitive issues talked about, sexual abuse and coercive control behaviors. So please take time to take care of yourself within that.
We heard a bit about your story of how you grew up, your parents, your initiation to IBLP, what it was like to be a child, being homeschooled in an environment that maybe wasn't so academic. What it was like for you and all the rules and the punishment and a lot of things we discussed. So listeners, if you have not listened to part 1, please go to that. This part 2, we're going to focus on Headquarters and your experience with Bill Gothard. And then we'll discuss and break down maybe what predatory behaviors we can see in that situation, and maybe for our listeners, they can take away with them. So you talk about Headquarters. So can you give us like how this occurred? Like I have a vision in my head of a big building of Headquarters, a compound, like a spy organization. I don't know. And you were invited to Headquarters. What does that mean? How did this happen? Maybe start us on the journey to that.
Sure. As a teenager in the Advanced Training Institute, you're very aware of all of the, quote, ministry, unquote, opportunities that are out there within the IBLP system, within Bill Gothard's programs. The training centers held a lot of different programs. Excel was for young ladies. Think of it as an 8-week finishing school for Jesus. And then you had Alert, which was the paramilitary for Jesus program for men. And then there were a lot of offshoots. Like he had a leaders in training program for, the super rebellious. And you could once you became into your teen years, you could apply to join some of these programs or to go and attend them yourself. He had counseling seminars. I mean, he ran the gamut. At some point, there was a midwifery course. There were a lot of different courses that you could take. He at one point tried to have a university. I don't think it went very well, but if you could get to Headquarters as an ATI student, that's kind of how they classified us. Oh, you're an ATI student. And now as an ATI student, you could go work at any of Bill's ministries. If you were from IBLP, meaning you'd gone to the basic and advanced seminar, but you were, you were homeschooled in a Becca, but you had never gone through the ATI program, you probably would not have you wouldn't be able to enter into these programs. It was specifically designed for those who had gone through the homeschooling program. So to me, that's the first warning sign of like, you have to stay within the system or be of the system in order to do some of these programs, because they need to make sure that you are programmed to be the kind of person that they need you to be for these facilities and stuff.
And you speak the lingo too. Right. You speak all the acronyms.
Yes. There is
and
a
all the lingo.
completely different vernacular for all of this. So yeah, you can't just drop in hot from a Mormon church. You'd be like, what is going on? You would understand the vibe of everybody, the way that they dress, that they're very humble, that they appear to be very devout, religious people of religion, but all the words would probably be upside down for most people. But as a teen, I went to Excel at the Dallas Training Center, the 8-week program. I started teaching the Children's Institutes, which they had at the advanced and basic seminars for anyone secular or religious that wanted to attend those. So it was kind of like Sunday school for the kids while the parents are in their sessions. And that is that's how I ended up meeting Bill Gothard. And it was not the first time I met him. I had met him at the Dallas Training Center when I was at Excel. He would come down for the graduation, and I have a picture of him and I standing together. But when I met him in Atlanta, my mother had driven us up from Florida. My brother and I, we were finally of traveling age that we could be left at a hotel with all these other ATI students for the week, and we would teach the Children's Institute at night with while the parents were in session. And I think it was like the first or second morning that we were there. We were all in the breakfast room. Everybody's in navy blue and white. We're just ready to go. And we're eating. My brother's with me, and Bill walks into the breakfast room, and there's just kind of like, oh, like this hush that goes over the whole group. Just like, it's Mr. Gothard. And of course, whether I believed in God or not, or I'm imposturing and trying to do my thing, you're seeing the man by which all of this magic runs. He is kind of our mini God. He's our prophet. He's our rock star. And so there's a lot of reverence around him and just awe. But he goes and gets breakfast. He sits down several round tables away from me, and I'm just sitting talking with my brother, and a couple of people were getting to meet. And I kept looking up, and he just was fixed on me. He wasn't looking around the room. He was just like locked right with me, eyes. And I'm like, oh, I kind of looked down. I'm like, oh, this feels really weird. And yet, oh my gosh, he's looking at me. And you have no idea how to perceive what this is, because there is so much. I get so angry about this because there's so much innocence and naivety to this.
Yeah.
You're kind of like, ooh, is there a God? Is this my way out? Is this my way of like, now I get to have all the answers because Bill's within reach, and I could say, hey, why is all this happening? Or what can I do with my life? You're the wise sage of all. So help me. But he just keeps looking at me. And I don't know, maybe 15 minutes go by, and he stands up and he comes right over to me, beelines right to me. And he's like, what is your name? And I was like, I'm Lindsey. Hi. And he was like, well, Lindsey, he's like a bizarre cadence. Well, Lindsey, I would love for you to come to my office tonight after the seminar and have a chat. And I'm like, okay, I'd be honored. Thank you, sir. And away he goes. And my brother's just elbowing like, oh my God, he wants to see you. Oh my goodness, Lindsey, this is amazing. And I'm like, is it though? So that night after the seminar, I go and I meet him. And even just all of this stuff was very strange to me, because I had to go and wait down the front of this big auditorium, wait to the side. And his assistant came and got me and took me out to the van. And off we went to his offices. There were some women that were there cooking dinner. And I was immediately shoved off with the women, like, oh, you can go and help them with dinner. And I'm like, is this why I'm here, to just be the wait staff for you? So I was a little disappointed, and I still don't, but I have a hard time being around Christian women. They're so unsafe for me. I've always labeled them as unsafe because they are the underlying manipulative power to men. And they also will find every kind of way to bend your words to get to you. To me, the men were a lot clearer. If you're going to spank me, you're going to spank me. If you're not going to like it, you're going to tell me you don't like it. You're going to correct me very quickly and very, very definite. Like, it's just
you see it clear. Coming.
Yeah. Whereas with women, it was like, I don't know. I think in 3 days, you're going to be like, you know what? I saw that one thing you did, and I've been praying to God about it. And I figured out finally a way to harass you, manipulate you, and guilt you and shame you into something. Men don't really do it that way. There's like a long form way of getting to you. So I always felt very quiet and very withdrawn when I was around women. But we have dinner. Bill's kind of like a kid as he's eating, and he wanted ice cream. And for as long as I've known that man, ice cream and sweets are his favorite. So after all of this, I'm like, well, I guess we're going home because I need to get up in the morning and get ready for the seminars. And he's like, well, come into my office. So I'm like, okay. So we go into the office. I remember it being dim, hardwood everywhere. And like his assistant was off in a corner on a big desktop computer, off to the side, but he could hear everything we were saying. And of course, all the red carpet. And Bill leans back in his chair like he's had his after dinner mint and he needs his scotch in his hand. And he was just like, so tell me about your family. And I'm like, where do you even start? Like, what am I supposed to tell you? You are the man of all. So I tried to keep it light, but like, oh, but you don't know. Like, I know my story. Like, well, I was born to a mom of 17 years old, and then and this and this and that. And you all of a sudden, it's just verbal diarrhea. and you tell him everything.
Mm.
And he wanted to know my birth order and, what my spiritual gift was. For some reason, those are just like markers for him to put you in certain boxes. And asked how old I was. And then he was like, is there any young man in your life? And I was like, well, yes. I mean, we're not courting yet, but he's talking to my dad. And he's like, well, how old is he? And I'm like, he's 35. And he was like, and you're 18. And I was like, yeah, he's been trying to court me for like a year now. And, he's still talking to my dad and everything. But like, I don't know. I wasn't like fully in it, but I wasn't fully out of it either, because I'm like, well, if that's the escape route, I guess that's the road we go down. So he then asked, he's like, well, are you a virgin, Lindsey? And I was like, I don't think I'd heard that word, but maybe 2 or 3 times in my life. And there's also another young man present who's maybe 5 years older than I am, sitting in the corner. And I just felt everything shrink inside of myself. Because even though I didn't have a great relationship with my dad, that's only something I would talk to him or my mother about. And now Bill's asking. And I was like, well, yes, no, of course, sir. And I was having a hard time breathing with it, because I'm like, I didn't understand the reason for the question. And then he doesn't really expound on it very much. And then he was like, well, I can't wait to see you here tomorrow night. Let's do this again tomorrow. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so the rest of the week, that's what we did. Every single night I would come in and talk to him. And I think on like a Thursday or Friday, he was like, so what do you think about the possibility of coming to headquarters? And I was like, yeah, that sounds amazing. First of all, I'm not at home with my abusive parents, which I didn't tell him that part. But I'm like, that would be awesome. I would absolutely love that. And I'm thinking to myself, God is working ?
Yeah.
Like, is this what I've meant to just be caged away for, so that I could now go do this, because it seems exciting. But what I didn't realize was exciting was simply just my fire of being bored from like being so suffocated. And my parents, he called my parents, they were happy as clams. Oh, absolutely. We're so honored. Like they were, they put on their impostoring and their kind, syrupy niceness. And everybody was like all good for me to go. And I wasn't even going to go home. I wasn't going to stop home and get clothes or have them shipped up. I was just going straight to headquarters from Atlanta.
How old were you again?
Go ahead.
How old were you at this point?
18.
18. Okay. Sorry, forgot.
But I will tell you, and I've said this to so many people, even to my therapist, I felt like I was 14 years old.
Right. For sure.
When I talk about this, like when I first started talking about it on TikTok, I said that I was 17. I really feel like I was so much younger, even though I know it's a year's difference. It was my internal understanding of everything was too young. I wasn't very wise about anything, but how could I be, given my upbringing?
Yeah, like we were talking about grooming in the last episode, like how really you were raised in a homeschooling situation where the literature, the textbooks were essentially ways to keep you confined and small and narrow in thinking and immature developmentally. You weren't socialized. Like it's all methods to keep you young in some respects. And maybe more attractive because of that.
I think what's even scarier too is when you think about the fact that Bill knows what I know and don't know. Because he created the freaking program himself.
Yeah.
He knows all of the materials that I have been subjected to for over 10 years. And then when you're like, and I went to Excel, and I went to this, and I did this program, and I did that program, and I did these journals, and this prayer journal, and this faith journal. Like he knows how far down the rabbit hole I am, and that I don't have a secular understanding of anything, and that I do have a compliant, submissive, conditioned self. So you're primed and ready for the predator. I mean, could I have a ribbon bow around my neck?
Right.
Hi, surprise, I'm the new present.
So he provides the material for predatory parents to raise somebody in a space where they deny themselves, they learn how to not have needs or to pretend like they don't have needs, to learn that their voice doesn't matter, to not have any experience, I'm guessing, using your voice, because every time you use it, you're punished, you're withdrawn from, and then the other side I'm imagining is there wasn't, as a young girl, starving for being seen or valued or heard. And then in walks God himself. And it's like, you're important. You're somebody. You cannot pick a more perfect situation that he has created to subjugate a human being.
Yes.
And a young person with and no ability to see outside that bubble.
100%.
Okay.
I mean, they said it so perfectly.
Do you know why he targeted you from the get-go? Like, I don't know if I'm jumping ahead.
Were you the cutest?
Well, I know, because
I had sparklers in my hands. Like, I have no idea.
No idea.
But, like, I really don't. There were other young ladies in that room. I was not a rabble-rousing person. You know, I was, again, like I said, I had a big smile. I liked to laugh. It got me in trouble all the time, even at home at church with some of the boys at church, because my dad would be like, you were too happy with the boys again. Or, you know, when you laugh, it makes them think that you really like them. And I'm like, I can't be human.
Yeah.
So when I'm with other people, and I was with my brother, so I know I felt comfortable. But I'm not, when I'm in new situations like that, I'm not crazy. I don't just like abandon all that I know. Do you know what I mean? I also wanted to be on good behavior because I wanted to be doing this more. I wanted to be seen as someone that could be asked back to these kinds of programs because I loved getting free of the house and doing other stuff.
Yeah.
So I couldn't tell you. I just look back at it and it chills me that he just locked in on me like a honing missile. And he was like, you know, and you shall be the one that I fixate on. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was the hair color. I don't know if it was the way I curled my hair that day. I mean, it could be so many little trite things at this point with him.
Hey everyone, we want to take a quick break to remind you about our Patreon page. 100% of this podcast is self-funded and we can't keep going by ourselves. If you want to help arm the prey of the world, please consider becoming a regular Patreon supporter. You can give as much or as little as you want. Anything and everything helps. So thanks so much. Now back to our episode.
The curling hair, I remember that from the docu-series, how you had to keep your hair curly. It was the fashion choices his choices?
Oh, yes. I mean, they were like the eye traps and things like that. That was all of his making, his perception, you know, not having a V-neck, not wearing sheer lace, not wearing patterned leggings, pantyhose back in the day. Again, I'm 80s, 90s for all of you who are thinking it's like 2015. No, these are like the 1980s and 90s. So people wearing pantyhose and tights. It all came out of an idea, I think, more towards like the 50s. You know, he just wanted us to all get back to that just real pure and simple way of modesty and simplicity. Like, hey, it's really easy, ladies. Just wear a flouncy dress and big hair and, you know, smile and have kids and teach them. Like, I think he just really saw that as like a simplistic way to just be.
But I also wonder if he was attracted to it on some level,
Of course. You know, because the curly hair, he got into it at headquarters, even more so. As you guys can tell with the video, like I have really straight hair. This stuff doesn't like to curl. And so even at a young age, I would spend 2 hours a morning curling my hair for this man. And not so much even, I mean, yes, it was for him, but like for everybody, because it's just the aesthetic that they wanted. And so I would actually do French twists on my hair a lot. So I just didn't even have to worry about having it down. But at one point towards maybe the last year that I was there, Bill Gothard started getting really like disgruntled that the women were starting to fall into modern hairstyles. Like I remember a couple of the girls had the Rachel haircut. And I was like, oh, that haircut looks really neat. Like, and for me with straight hair, it wouldn't take long to do. And he was not a fan. And he finally stood up one day and he was like, ladies, I feel the Lord moving in mysterious ways, or whatever he said, you know, he just feels the Lord working and that we need to come back to our traditional values and that he's noticed that the women aren't wearing their hair as curly. And so whatever you needed to be able to accomplish the curly hair, go out, purchase it, whatever, and then reach out to him and he would make sure that you were reimbursed. Well, since I was one of the Gothard girls, as I got unfortunately labeled there. I was always in his crosshairs. I was always getting sought out. I didn't really feel like I had a choice. He wanted that. And if I wanted to stay there instead of going back home where it was horrible, I was going to have to figure out how to curl my hair. So I remember going to Walmart and getting like all the bendy sticks I could possibly purchase. I got tons of hairsprays and all this stuff. And I remember walking into his office and I'm like, so here's the bill. Because I'm not paying for this. He wanted it. And so I was like, here you go, Mr. Gothard. And he's like, wonderful. Go up to finance and they'll cut you a check. And I'm like, okay. So I walk up to finance and they were so like, oh, seriously, and they wrote out a check and off I went. I'm like, thank you.
So how long were you actually there?
Almost 3 years.
You live on the complex. Is he seeing you on a regular basis? Is he seeing like a bunch of girls?
And how did you fill your days for 3 years?
Oh, I kept busy, honey. So headquarters is not like the training centers are, where there's fencing and you can be trapped in there. Like there's one way in, one way out. Headquarters is 2 specific buildings, the PC, the production center, where most of the offices are. There's a printing press there. A lot of the materials, the Winston booklets were printed there. And then they have a shipping department. And then over at the staff center was where Bill's office was, and some of the more, I don't know, like CEOs, CFOs, if you will, but not totally. Like seminar operations was over there. I don't really know like finance was there as well, but a much smaller building, and also the kitchen with the dining hall. So the 2 buildings were used. I mean, I worked in the kitchen, I think, for maybe the first 2 weeks that I was there. And so I'm downstairs from his office. And when I first got there, me meeting him in his office happened probably 3 to 4 times a week. And I would come in with my navy blue and white. I would have my Bible. I would have my pen and notebook. And I was just ready to go. Whatever the Lord needed me to be for Bill Gothard, by darn it, I was going to do it. And again, I think at this point, I'm like, do I believe in God now? Is there something now that it makes more sense or not? I'm still like jury's out, but I know all the information. I'm just like, well, I am a Christian, I guess. But he would just sit there and he wouldn't use me at all. He would just dictate stuff to his assistants and they would type out newsletters to different groups and whatnot. And that was it. I would just sit there for hours in the evening, just sitting like a little dolly on a chair.
Right. But he would ask you to come, but he wouldn't engage with you?
Yeah. He would ask me to come up, and then I got the pleasure of sitting and watching the master work, I guess.
That's a bit of mind games though, too, right? Is there something in that? Like, as far as predatorial, it's like you're just sitting and watching and waiting, right?
It's very possible, because he would look over at me and he would smile, or he'd wink every now and then, which I also thought was really weird because he was anti-winking. Like winking shouldn't happen because you're, putting out potential promises you can't fulfill, and you're trying to seduce somebody or whatever. And I just remember thinking that's really weird that he does that, given that, he taught us that we shouldn't. So already things that I'm realizing are hypocritical to what he says and what he does. But very shortly into that, maybe like 2 weeks into me being there, he was like, well, one night his assistant was getting ready to go, and I would usually leave when the assistant would, because that's just the thing. You can't be a woman and a man alone together, because the what do they call it? I just have totally blanked. It gives the appearance of evil. So you can't have a man and a woman alone. You would have to have 2 men, 2 women, something, because the appearance of evil is too much. And but his assistant was ready to leave, and he was kind of like, well, Lindsey, stay behind. We're gonna pray. And I kind of remember looking at the assistant like, you gonna stay here? And he was just like, kind of hesitated for a minute, but then finally picked up his bag and went. And to this day, I don't know, I don't hold him to blame because he was raised in the system. I can't put my finger at him and say, you know what, you should have saved me, because he was also raised in this whole way. For some reason, I give him a pass every time. Anyway, so Bill's like, come over to the couch and let's pray. And I was like, okay. And I figured we would just sit on the couch and, I'd be at one end, he'd be at the other. Oh no, he had totally different plans. He wanted us to kneel next, like in front of the couch. And then, so I knelt down first, and then he kneels down and he is way close. And I was like, I can feel the body heat coming off of your suit, sir. And he was just like, so let's pray. I know your family's going through a hard time and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, okay. And so I just put my hands together by myself, like clasp my hands together, and I close my eyes, and, I'm all, here I am. And all of a sudden his hand creeps around my right hand and he pulls it towards him. And now we're holding hands together to pray. And I'm like, I'm so literal. And I think that this is my brain just defaulting of like, what am I supposed to do? Because I don't know how to run away from it. And I'm like, what do I do with my left hand? That's all I could think about. I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this one over here? And meanwhile, he's just praying. And he's massaging his thumb on my hand and just like very, very kneading it. And I'm like, stop, this is weird. And then all of a sudden he starts pushing his shoulder into mine, and his elbow, and then his hip and his thigh. And I'm like, what is going on? Because in our culture too, with all of this, they call it the 6-inch rule. You should never touch another guy. You should be standing far away from a female. And here he is literally like shrink wrapping his body up against the profile of mine as we're praying. And he gets down to his calf and his ankle. And then his foot is like rubbing my foot with his shoe and my shoe. And I'm like, oh, this is really tactily, this is bothering me so much. And he keeps praying, and my brain's kind of going off. But at no point am I like, you should get up and run out of here. I'm just like, just stay still. And I didn't even think, what if more happens?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, just pray with him. I'm just going to disconnect from why this is happening. And then he nudges me with his head, like we're all cute and sweet together. And he just nudges, and he's like, it's your turn. And I'm like, to press my profile against yours? And I'm like, no, that can't be it. And I was like, oh, pray. Duh. Yeah. And so I start praying. And I'm like, wow, this has just been like the mental gymnastics of all time right now, trying to figure out why am I so disoriented about this? And I pray kind of quickly, and then we say amen, and I pull my hand away and I stand up very quickly. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to get my bag, and thank you so much, Mr. Gothard, and I'll see you in the morning. And he's like, well, good night, Lindsey. And off I go. That happened 3 to 4 times a week for the first 4 to 6 months I was there. Like clockwork. Wow. I can envision the whole thing in my head. I think that's why, unfortunately, I'm so detailed when I tell it, because I can't not. Like, it's almost like nothing should be missed.
It's a trauma memory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you remember every little detail.
To this day,
yeah,
I do not understand why he didn't try more.
That's what I was going to ask you.
It is mind-blowing to me. But when he loves footsie, and when I would travel with him in his van, there were bucket seats in the front and back, or like behind the front seats, there were 2 swing seats, swivel seats. And so I would face him as we were driving down to like Indianapolis, which is like a 3-hour drive from headquarters. And he would kick his shoes off and invite me to do the same. And I would. And then I would instantly regret it, because he loved to rub his feet against my feet. Mm-hmm. And I don't like to be touched. I think we can understand why, given the upbringing. And to me, touch was always a bad thing. And this was definitely not helping me think that touch was a good thing. Right. And I was just so repulsed by it. And yet I was disconnecting. I wasn't disassociating, but I was disconnecting the idea that Bill Gothard is a man of God. Bill Gothard likes to touch my feet with his feet. How is this the same man? I think I was just like, well, this is his today, or this is just a thing. I didn't know how to connect it to say he's grooming and he's weird and he's a creepy uncle. And if we could just make him stop, somebody, please. But we already knew the rules of the game. I can't tell anybody about this. If I tell somebody, it's because I brought it on myself.
Right.
I'm causing him to stumble. I'm being the stumbling block. Anything of a sexual or sensual nature will always default to the female being the person who enticed the man, because we're taught from a young age, men cannot control their sexual desires, thoughts, or behaviors. Women don't have sexual thoughts, desires, or behaviors. So, we have to be the gatekeepers to men's access to sexual anything. So if he's participating in something, then I brought it upon myself, and I have pulled down the prophet of IBLP and the man of God that everybody idolizes.
Well, even in the documentary, there was the mention about gossip and how the words, so it wasn't even like you could speak up, because there's this idea that you're gossiping.
Mm-hmm.
Here's some unkind words, which is so, we hear in the news a lot of people, like a lot of the, ministers out there who get caught doing stuff, don't touch God's anointed and all that. Those predatory words that are used by these people in these kind of religious institutions, essentially, who are like, if you speak up against me, you're gossiping. Well, no, I'm just speaking, I'm sharing truth
of people's actions.
Yeah. And you don't like it and it is negative. If you think anything negative is gossip, well, that's very handy for you.
Well, it's also this idea of DARVO, which is deny, attack, and then reverse victim offender, right?
That is
so. I mean, that's the weapon of choice for most predators, because you've got these women. It sounds like that were being abused, and they had no language for abuse. And because you don't think that way, it never. Even though you're uncomfortable, you know that you don't want it. You know that. You're trying to do mental gymnastics to make it make sense, or to conceptualize it in a way that's good and holy and acceptable, and because it couldn't possibly be bad. And so you're also denying that sense in yourself that you need to be safe and protected, because the whole structure of this society is that you are not to be protected. You are to be used. Even him, like I imagine you sitting in his office, the message to you is that you are here to please me as an object. You have no actual value other than the value I give you when I bestow upon you a smile or a wink. You're welcome.
Yes.
And then I want to touch you. And then I want to pray with you, and I want to play footsies with you. And it sounds like there was something in you that bristled, which I'm imagining he probably picked up on at some level. It would be a fight at some level to get much further. So he probably had a sense that was about where he was going to get to. But as women are talking, it sounds like people were, and even maybe the men were talking about these girls in his office. And so I love this idea that this, like, instead of the truth being able to be spoken, we create this whole new predatory construct with the DARVO, which is now we're going to make that you're bad and wrong for speaking truth. You're bad and wrong for being frightened. You're bad and wrong for speaking. And we're going to flip it. So the person, it's not the predator's problem. It's not him who's sexually abusing and frightening and coercing young girls who don't have a language for no. It is the young girls who are gossipers when they're trying to get words to express their terror.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's no safe harbor for it either. There is no safe option to go to. There was no good choice but to just endure it. It was the only safe choice I felt I had, because at least I felt like I had control.
You're right.
Even though I'm sure I didn't. I was probably very falsely there. But I felt like at least I knew, keep your enemy closer.
Yeah, right.
I knew where he was.
Well, that's the fawn. Like the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. One of the trauma responses is fawn. And so it's kind of like the flip side of fight. It does have an aspect of fight to it. But if I please him, he might not hurt me as much if I just don't cause trouble. So it's a trauma response, but now we've got somebody who's using your trauma response against you as a weapon.
Yeah.
Did you dread every night that you had to go see him? Like, what does that do to your psyche? You think, oh, I have to go see Bill again. And how, would he... did you just have a standing appointment with him, or how did it work?
So that's a really good question. So it was sort of, I think in the very beginning, it was assumed because I didn't have any community there yet. So he's really the only person I knew, but he would say it like, we'll come back tomorrow night, or he wouldn't. And I'd be like, okay, I guess I'm not coming back tomorrow night. But there were morning meetings at the PC. There were morning meetings, staff meetings before we started work. So he would attend those if he was in town. And if he saw me there, then he'd pull me aside, or he would just be like, hey, I'll see you up at the office tonight. Or at lunchtime, we had a kitchen and they would feed us every day during the work week. So we had to go up to, it was expected that we would all go up to the staff center for a lunch hour. And that's where Bill's office is. So if you're the new shiny object, you're not hiding in these situations. It doesn't matter. Like I tried. I mean, I was just like, oh, I don't want to do this again. Or maybe I can just tell him like everything's fine at home or everything's fine with this situation. And I feel like my family back home did not help me any because there was constantly other issues at home. And they would somehow he would know. I don't know if he was calling them or they were telling him or if I told him, but I'm just like, oh, why does he always know what's up? And why is there some reason for him to always need to pray with me? But it started to tamper off after about 4 to 6 months. He's a very busy guy. So he's traveling to all of these training centers. He's doing international stuff. He still has the seminars he's putting on. And so when he was gone, that was my favorite. I loved when he was not at headquarters because I did not have to worry about all that stuff and everything else. Though, yes, a lot of it was still not great. In other ways, it was highly tolerable. I mean, no one's touching me. I can do what I need to do within the construct. And I was working in the homeschooling department. I was actually in the ATI department. So I was offering assistance and services to the homeschool families and also working with, the finances and data entry and reporting system and all that stuff. And I stayed in that department the entire time I was there at headquarters. But I did, when he started bringing other people back, is when I started to really start to realize what was really going on. I think I was kind of in the dark of, I don't want to say that I was refusing to see truth. I just didn't even know to look for where it lied. I was just like, well, I guess this is just what it is. It's my luck in life to just constantly fall into weird situations. But I started realizing that he was bringing other people back. And then I would walk by the office at night sometimes and would not look in the window. I did not want to see who was in there. I did not want to see who the next person was that was having to endure him. And it's one of the things I feel guilty about, but I don't carry it with me all the time, if that makes sense. Like, I feel sad that I wasn't in a place where I could have done something, that it was better for me to just not look and know. But my therapist has said so many times that is your survival instinct. Like you were trying to survive. And I was like, I feel like if I had looked in that window and saw any other person again, I probably would have lost myself and probably run in there and approached him. What do you think you're doing? Like, why are you doing this? I have a much easier time defending others than myself. So yeah, I had to turn that part of myself off. But so it started to wane a bit, but he would still ask every now and then. He'd be like, hey, come up for prayer. And again, just like clockwork, same old thing. And he started to get more intrusive. I had a blood clot in my hand while I was there and had to go into the hospital for like several days, ICU and stuff. And I was on blood thinners and blah, blah, blah. When I got out, I'd lost quite a bit of weight. It was a very stressful situation. And with these blood thinners, I had to go to a doctor every week to get blood draws to make sure that everything was going okay. And towards the end of these sessions with the doctor, which was one of his doctors, and I was shuttled over by one of the staff guys to be dropped off at this facility. But I go in towards the end of these sessions and the doctor was like, so Lindsey, Bill called me this morning and mentioned that, if you want to get your mole removed today, that we could remove your mole. And I remember putting my hand up to my face. I'm like this mole? What? Why my mole? And he was like, yeah, I don't really know. He said something about the countenance. And I was like, is it okay if I keep it? I was like, is it cancerous? I know I've heard that before. I don't even know where I'd heard that before. But I was like, I'd heard that like moles could be cancerous. Like, does it look okay? And so he got the scope and he looked at it and he was like, no, you're totally fine. And I was like, well, I know when I'm not fine. And he was like, well, he's like, it'll start doing this or acting like this or implode or whatever it is or get darker. And I was like, okay, yeah, no, I like the way God made me. Thank you. So then I went back to headquarters and I was so paranoid to see Bill. I'm like, what is he going to be so disappointed that I still have this like thing on my face? And why doesn't he like it when he's taught about self-acceptance and God, we have to accept how God made us. We don't alter how we were made. And now he's trying to get this off of me. And I'm like, tick another box of like the hypocritical, whatever. And so sure enough, I walk into the office and I'm like, hi, Bill, or hi, Mr. Gothard. And he was like, oh, Lindsey, I see you didn't get the mole removed. And I was like, I really love the way God made me. I was like, I don't know what else to do.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just going to use his own words against him. And he was like, well, when there are times that we can brighten the countenance,
wow,
maybe we consider it. And I'm just like, you are full of BS, sir.
wow.
And I was like, it's okay. I like how God made me. And I walked out.
Amazing that you had that strength, though.
Good for you.
Like, that's stunning.
So I used to have people Photoshop it out when Photoshop became a thing. And I look so weird to myself without it. And I'm like, how dare you? But it was around that last year that I really started to have a lot of discord in my spirit again, of just like, I hate this place. I don't want to go home. I felt hopeless and helpless. I don't know what the future is supposed to hold at this point. And thankfully I found a guy, or he found me, or I don't know. He came to program at headquarters, and I instantly did not like him for no other reason than I just didn't. And fast forward to like maybe 8 months or whatever later, we ended up kissing each other.
Go
Oh,
Lindsey.
no.
Totally the most massive anti-purity culture, everything no. And I won't go into the whole story, but we ended up getting found out through the most randomness of situations. And we had to go and tell Bill and the head of HR ourselves, or this other student that had overheard a conversation between my man and I. He was like, well, if you don't tell Bill, I will. You have 24 hours.
Oh.
And so the next day, that's what we did. And within 2 days, I think the next day, my guy was sent home with his brother.
Oh, wow.
I'm just like really an honorary secretary and switchboard operator. And this guy is a programmer for their systems, as well as his brother. Like, who's more needed, him or me? Like, let's get real.
According to who, though, right? According to Bill, that he would probably, obviously, we see his priorities.
Of course. Yeah. He was happy to keep me.
Yeah.
So I stayed there for 3 more, I think maybe 3 more months-ish. And then he sat me down one day after the morning meeting, and he was like, so Lindsey, the board has been talking a lot about you lately. And I'm like, oh no. I thought maybe we'd move past it, right? It'd been 3 months. Maybe we're good. I've been absolved of my sins or whatever. And he was like, the board just really doesn't think it's a good idea for you to remain here any longer. And truly, I've done all that I can to keep you here this long. And I'm like, what in the world? First of all, what in the world were they all talking about for however long they have been? Because it's 3 months later. And what in the world were you doing and saying to keep me here?
Yeah.
Like, I have no idea, and I don't know that I ever want to know. I've never felt so gross and scared and intimidated, embarrassed, mortified.
Rejected.
But he was like, so what we're going to do is we're going to send you down to the Oklahoma City Training Center. And I just, oh my gosh, internally, I was like, no, anywhere but there, anywhere but any of the training centers. At this point, I had heard so many horrible horror stories about the training centers and wanted nothing to do with them. And I was like, well, I should probably, like manipulating. I'm like, I should probably talk to my parents about this, thinking I'd rather go back home than the training center.
Wow.
Again, the lesser of the 2 evils in this one is home. And he was like, well, I've already talked to them and they're totally fine with you going. And I'm like, what? So within 5 days, I packed up my bedroom, shipped a bunch of it back to my family, and I got in a 15-pass van with some of the people from headquarters that had some seminar down there. And I was driven, down there in 2 days and left at the Oklahoma City Training Center for almost 5 months.
Sounds like you didn't even have a choice in that. It
No
was like,
voice.
No one asked me.
Yeah.
And at this point, I am 21.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I go down there for 5 months. I'm not paid. When I was at headquarters, I was one of the paid staffers. When I got down there, I was there for almost 5 months. I was very much shunned by almost everybody in the training center. There were a few really beautiful girls, y'all know who you are, that took me in and were friendly to me and didn't really care about whatever they had been told. But I still noticed, I really felt like I was walking around with the scarlet letter on my chest. And I was just like, this is nuts, you guys. I freaking kissed someone one time and you're losing your minds. And I remember there was a guy that I was doing the Character First program with in the public schools. And I finally one day just asked, I was like, can you just clue me in on what everybody knows about me coming from headquarters? And he was like, well, basically you were having sex with someone up there.
Wow.
And I was like, whoa, wait, that's what the whole training center thinks. And he's like, oh yeah, that's what we were told. And I'm like, so not true. I went even deeper inside of myself. Even in my journals, like I was writing one, one line, for my sentences and stuff. And by the time in those last couple of months, I was putting 2 lines on 1 line of paper. Like my handwriting had reduced so tiny. It's hard for me to even read it now. And it was such a visual of me just shrinking into myself that like, I don't even know how I can be big anymore. I don't know how to take up space. I don't know how to use a voice. I am just stuck here in a prison of people that I don't like and clearly don't like me. And I don't even believe in this stuff.
Well,
it was pretty rough. And back home was getting worse.
And I'm imagining like, I'm wondering for you, you do this thing, you kiss this boy because it feels real, it feels true, it feels authentic, it feels
good.
It's real. It may be the first real thing you risked doing. And now the depth and breadth of punishment for you is withdrawal. You are now punished. You are scarlet lettered.
You're lied about.
You are bad. You are, disparaged, demeaned.
But I thought the gossip was a sin. Oh, wait, it's only when we're talking about men.
Oh, yeah. I mean, these rules are only for the prey.
Yeah, that's right.
They don't,
exactly.
the predator makes the rules for the prey. The predator doesn't actually abide by the rules.
Right.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep.
So here's this
100%.
one moment that you get to be authentic. And the price you paid for that was belonging.
Yes.
Was there a moment where you were like, kind of like, I knew it? Like I knew I wasn't allowed to exist? Was there any kind of thing in you? Because that punishment was so big and so deep.
I think there was a lot of me that I think all I can really remember is just feeling completely hopeless and helpless. Because even with my guy, like he was instantly taken from me.
Yeah.
And again, this is the 90s. Maybe, it's the 90s. Like we didn't have cell phones. We didn't have technology to sneak and talk to each other. He was gone permanently. And I was like, well, whatever I was even allowing myself to open up and feel about this person, that's been whisked away. So again, will I ever have stability? Ever? Probably not. Back home was just getting worse. And I ended up begging my dad, please let me come home. Like you guys are living in 2 separate homes now. Like just let me be a part of like helping keep everything, I don't know, clean or whatever I needed. And I was like, I just feel the Lord push again, manipulation is when like, I feel like women just manipulate, but I was like, I have to do this. Like, I feel like the Lord is leading me to come home and be there for the boys and whatever. And then I remember giving a testimony. I wish it had been recorded because that testimony was probably one of the most marvelous things I've ever given because I was testimonying for my life. I was testimonying for my freedom to get the hell out of that place. And there was not one flowery, most fabulous Bill Gothard word that I did not use in that testimony. And I just had to really, again, imposter and dig down and say, I am just going to be the most saintly young lady. I'm not going to look at boys. I'm not going to talk to inappropriately to anybody. I'm just going to do the best at the chores I have to do at the training center. I'm going to go to these schools and just be just perfection. And I feel like they ate it up.
Yeah.
And then I give this testimony of how the Lord has just changed me and I got to go home.
Wow.
You fawned your ass off.
Whether you're listening to this on a podcast platform or on YouTube, please share it with anyone you think could use it. Emotional abuse is not widely understood, which is also often why predatory behavior can last as long as it does. Help us spread the word to stop predators and protect fellow prey. #PreyPower.
So can you take us from there to now? I mean, we're hearing this young woman who's got this fire, but is at the cusp, like on the precipice of being broken. Yes. And to the so point close. Where home, which you've expressed to us, is like so traumatizing. seems like the best option you have. How did we get here?
Y'all, it was a nightmare. I stepped into it and I was like, ew. Like, I knew this was going to be bad, and yep, it is bad. But you know what? I didn't have to follow any of those full-on rules anymore. I came home and I felt like I'd been gone for 10 years. It was only 3, but I was like, whoa, this place is real different now, and people are doing their own things. And my brother has a Nintendo system in his room, and there's TVs now, and there's like my mom and dad are separated, and my mom's in a trailer, my dad's in the house that I lived in for several years, and I wasn't allowed to have a car. I wasn't allowed to learn how to drive. My brother, who was younger than me, had a car and could drive, so he would have to shuttle me back and forth, and I literally became the 2-house nanny. I was cleaning the houses, I was cooking meals. That was it. That's all I did. But I started just kind of like getting a little more willful. And it's hilarious that I'm like, 21 years old, I'm finally getting willful outside of myself. But I would push and I would shove. And I was like, you know what? I don't understand why you guys can live separated and then you still want me to wear skirts. Like, what is wrong with you? Like, I'm like, you can't watch me every damn second of the day. So I'm going to do me. And I remember listening to like Britney Spears or just like, I was like, oh, she's fancy, just weird things, I'm like, oh, she's got some peppy tunes. And that's really where my more secular life started, was at 21, not, when I was 10 or whatever, 21 years old. But very quickly, my now hubby reached out to my dad to enter into courtship. And I was elated. He and I had reconnected with each other through AOL Instant Messenger. And it was like we had never left each other. And I couldn't believe it. I was like 5 months of complete no communication, didn't even know if he gave a crap about me. And we just hit it right back off. And so I was like, I didn't want to get married early. No. But I'm like, but I really like him. And there is nothing else on the horizon. I tried to get involved in another ministry-ish kind of program in DC, which, given everything now, I'm so grateful that did not happen. But I just needed something. Obviously, at that age, you can't just sit at home and clean houses. But he reached out to my dad for courtship, and my dad toyed with him. And again, this is like the old days. You're writing letters. So once a week you're receiving it and writing one back and sending it back. So it was very slow going with them. And I knew from my husband, now husband, that he was writing to my dad, but my dad had not clued me in that he was receiving letters. And that's just another one of my dad's narcissistic control tactics. And I was like, whatever. I just, at this point, at least something's happening and someone cares. Someone out there knows that I shouldn't be here forever. So my dad was very obstinate about things and very piously Christian man, and trying to like push my husband through hoops and stuff. And anyway, obviously we're married, so we won. But he did finally cave in to like, well, he seems like a really good guy. But even then, when you were talking about like, it seems like you were almost broken when you got home, like I was irreparably broken. This is actually what got me to a place where I'm like, if this doesn't happen, if I don't marry him, I'm not coming back from whatever depth I end up in. Like, who knows what will happen? I don't know what could happen. I don't know what I would try to either do to myself or just run away from home and just like go and find some weird nomad existence. I didn't know. But my dad had taken me to a Starbucks inside one of like Books A Million or something. And we're sitting there and he slides this letter across the table to me and he's like, oh, so, you're I don't want to, well, his name is Bryce, whatever. So he was like, so Bryce has been writing me. And I was like, oh, he has, and trying to act all surprised. And he was like, yeah, so he wrote me this letter. And so he's like, I'd like you to read it. So I do. And it's 1-pager. And basically it's just professing that like, I really care about your daughter and I've grown to love her. And I appreciate all the communication that we've had. And I'm looking for your permission to marry her. And so, of course, my heart is fluttering in my throat. I can barely get words out. I'm like, oh my God, like, is this really happening? Is this like, do I get to move on with my life with someone who is kind? Because that would be freaking amazing. Not something I anticipated. And I pushed the letter back and I'm like, well, what did you say to him? Without trying to sound excited, because I did not want him to see that this is something that I wanted. Because I felt like if I was too overly excited, he was going to just shit on it right away.
Use it to overpower you.
I was like, well, so what did you say to him? And he's like, I told him no. I pushed my chair back. metal to cement, screech, pushed it back, stood up, stormed to the car. And at this point too, another thing, like as a woman, I had to stand and wait for a man to open my door. So I stomped out to the van and I stood there just waiting for him to open the door. And he opened it and I got in. We drove all the way home in silence. I stormed into the house. I went into my shower and I turned it on as hot as it possibly could get. And I sat there for over an hour, allowing it to just burn my body.
Yeah.
Hurting yourself.
It's done. It's over. It's over. I don't know what life is supposed to look like, and I cannot stay in this confined barrel for the rest of my life. How do you fight to get out when you don't know what fight is?
Right.
All you know is you're really angry inside, but you have no capacity to even express it.
No language.
No. So you turn it inside. You turn it toward yourself.
Yeah, I guess I'll just keep hurting.
Yeah.
Let's just hurt more here.
Yeah.
Because like at least I can control it.
Yeah. At least you can express it.
It took him a couple more weeks to finally come around to saying yes. It was actually really fast. It was weird how quick it was. And I have a feeling my mother probably had a part in it. And my husband's father, when he received the no, he called my dad and said, look, my son is very much in love with your daughter. I don't know what game you're trying to play here, but if this is, I believe this to be real and he really cares about her. And I attribute his father to getting the wheels moving on us getting married.
So tell us a little bit about, if it feels like not appropriate, then let's skip it. But the two of you are raised in this incredibly dogmatic, rhetoric-based, predatory system where you've been controlled your whole life. He's been probably, I'm assuming, taught how to control somebody. He's been taught the lingo, the language. Males in the docuseries, one of the people say, that the young men are actually trained to be predators. I think they actually use that language. How does that go in a relationship?
I think this, the boys being predators, I would say, yes, it obviously happens. I think that there's also the men that aren't, not everybody is one thing, but, his family is not an aggressive family. Like there wasn't alpha maledom happening. And I don't mean that disparagingly in any way, but there wasn't a narcissistic parent or a narcissistic father that was demanding like my father was. Right. I mean, I think the narcissism of my dad and the severity of punishment definitely forced my brothers into being certain people for a long time. And thankfully they've been able to course correct a lot of their behaviors. Yeah. And yes, there are a lot of people, I think, when you see your own father taking advantage of the mother or abusing the mother, then that becomes a behavior that they understand. And they're like, oh, I guess that's what we do too. And, the women are compliant and let it continue to happen. So yeah, this seems like the way we go. I think I got incredibly, incredibly lucky to have somebody who had already checked out on religion, but was also kind of impostering, but not to the depth I was, but just like, yeah, I'm here and I do the things, I wear the suit, I go to the Sunday schools and I do the lunches and everything. But he was also a guy, so he's not in Gothard's crosshairs by any stretch of the imagination. He could disappear and not go to these different meetings and not ever be noticed. Yeah. And that would have been wonderful. I would have loved that for myself.
So it sounds like for him, he was not only not a predator, but he was in a position of being prey himself.
Yeah.
And so he must have had to sort of be a male prey with a bunch of male predators and he must have been subjected to a lot of seeing things that hurt him to watch or to experience or to be.
I would say honestly, I'm not sure that he really did. Okay. I think like his family was not a heavy-handed disciplinarian family like mine either. Okay. I mean, we were literally night and day, our family dynamics. I think that he just, I don't know how he avoided so many different things, but I think honestly, I just call it to his nature. It's not in his nature to be that person. And so
He's not a predator.
I think when that happens, it's just like, it wasn't in mine to be a mother.
Yeah.
It's never from day one. My dollies did not have babies. My dollies were on airplanes and going to different countries. They did not care about having a brood. And it always was. I don't care how many people told me, like, be the best mom in the world, or you should have twins or whatever. I'm like, I don't care what you think. I know exactly who I am in certain spots. And I think my husband is very much the same way in a lot of areas too. He's just a kind-hearted person. I think if anything, he gets taken advantage of because he's so kind and so workable. It's sometimes the one thing I try to shield him from, because I am a very powerful individual in myself. And I'm like, no, honey, you're not doing that. I'm not going to let you know. You can't spend your weekend helping that person with their computer. It's called Nerd Geek Squad or whatever. Right. Like, they can go get their own program computer fixed. But I don't know. He's just, I feel like I'm just gushy, but he is the perfect human being that I could have ever found for myself. We don't argue. We talk things out. There was so much arguing in my family between my mom and dad that arguing actually scares me. Yeah. I will cry when I am angry because I'm so afraid of what's about to happen, because to me, anger was the most unpredictable horror. And so even anger within myself has to remain very deep down somewhere inside of me, because heavens knows the Mount Vesuvius that's going to happen if I let it out. I will hurt people. Well, if I'm angry. That was my old belief. I don't believe it now, but that was them for sure.
Well, and that's also for women. Like, in this culture, it's about the meek and mild, quiet children.
Blessed are the meek.
Yes, and the women talk up here, and there's no power in the voice or authority. It's all. Did you have a different voice when you were in this world?
Oh, I will have to, at some point, I'll have to share with you guys that when you go to headquarters, that if you last the first 6 months, you have to give a testimony of just like how you became a Christian, what your spiritual gift, you just put people up to speed with who you are if you're staying longer. So my very first recording, I think I'm still 18 years old. And I sound like one of the Duggar kids. Like, I am just such a prepubescent, infantile girl. And I have a Southern accent, so it's pretty funny to hear. And then, because we were living in Florida at the time, but when 2 years later, I was asked to give another one, and the amount of checked out couldn't give a F is hilarious to me. I'm like, oh, she's over it. My voice finally fell into its lower register, because I'm like, I'm all up here. And then I was like, no. And I'm like, oh, it is to me very night and day difference. And even the way that I was talking, I knew, I think to a certain degree, I was a bit invincible. And I was starting to push the limits with to me, it's like those small infractions, but I can tell I'm done.
You're literally finding your voice.
Yeah, you literally found your voice, what Jill PJ just said.
Yeah, did I?
Yeah.
So it sounds like this beautiful blessing that you have found your sort of fellow prey in this community of predators, which I imagine doesn't happen that often, but what a beautiful testament to his nature and to the nature of the fact that even in the most predatory systems, prey can survive and neither become predatory nor break.
Yeah.
And it sounds like the way out for you was literally getting out of the community. Can you tell us a little bit about how did the two of you, because at this point you're still quite in the community, at least externally, if not internally. When was that exodus for you? How did you guys get out?
So marriage is how we left our homes. Okay. And just before we got married, I had quite the come to Lindsey conversation with him. And I was just like, I really need you to understand that I am going to wear shorts. I'm going to wear tank tops.
Wow.
I am probably going to cut my hair a little bit because it's crazy long and I'm sick of it. It's too hot. I'm not going to have kids for the first 5 years. I'm going to listen to whatever music I want. I want to get caught up on all the blockbuster movies. Are you okay with this? And he was like, sounds good to me. And I was like, are you sure? Do we need this in writing? Because I am not to be messed with. I believe in the divorce word and I will use it. And he was just like, yeah, I really don't have a problem with it. I'm like, not even the shorts. No, it's fine. I'm like, how is this possible, Lord?
Yeah.
No
like,
doubt.
Okay. So I was willing to marry him because I'm like, all right, I'm seriously taking the biggest leap of faith of myself and the whole world and in him.
Yeah.
But we moved away from our parents because they, of course, both sets of parents wanted us to live near them or on their property. And I'm like, hell no. So we moved to a completely different state. He remained working for headquarters. When he went home, he still worked for headquarters for IBLP. And so for the first, I think, 2 years of our marriage, maybe a year and a half of our marriage, he worked for IBLP and I worked for their kind of, what is that thing, the eyes that Josh Duggar had on his computer, Covenant Eyes.
Oh yeah, Covenant Eyes. Yeah.
We had one with IBLP called Character Link. And so I got to stare at all the weird stuff people wanted to look at in order to see if they should look at it or not.
Well, and Character Wink is such a funny name considering what he said about
winking.
Yeah, or he did wink.
It's so ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
So I did that for a while. And we actually then would go to headquarters for like Christmas parties for as a staff family. And I'm like, this is bizarre. Like to have been a student and now coming in as a staff family, you have a totally different feeling about it. And, Gothard is still there. And I just was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't hear his voice. I don't want to see his face. And I realized that the longer I would go without seeing him or hearing him or watching a seminar with him, when I would be introduced to it again, I would have such a visceral reaction of just like, no, because I think just the further removed you are, you realize just what it could have been. And now that I'm married and I understand what a sexual relationship is, and I'm like, dude, this guy, what? I was literally a lamb chop in front of a wolf the whole time. And I didn't even know it. The depth of what it could have been. And I will forever question, what was it that kept him from not doing more? I was there for so long. I'm grateful. Trust me, I'm not asking that it happened, but because I know of so many other stories where things got progressively worse, I just want to attribute it to this idea that I had a resistant fire in me, that he knew better than to go any further, but yet he enjoyed what he could get away with because I gave him an inch,
Exactly.
But, So in getting away from the community, it was hard when close friends, I started modeling and I had a couple of close friends. I mean, I didn't know what I was doing. I was like a newborn fawn, like stumbling all over my long legs. And I was just like, let's just go try stuff, I'm not hurting anybody. I'm just exploring things. But all of a sudden it wasn't about me doing something wrong. It was that my husband, my spiritual leader, was allowing me to do something so wholly immoral and inappropriate. And then I would get pissed. I'm like, I'm sorry, what? You're calling my husband's integrity into question? How dare you? This isn't about him. Like, he supports what I'm doing. Get over yourself. Like, I was starting to get really barky. And I'm like, if I never see you or hear from you again, I'm fine, because you aren't cute. This isn't cute what you're doing. Yeah. And it just progressively started to just lose everybody.
Yeah.
So you started really trusting your own voice.
Yeah. I don't know that I was like, wow, I feel empowered. Yeah. I was just like, I've had enough.
Yeah.
So I wasn't walking with a lot of self-confidence, but I was walking with a lot of resistance to all the old stuff. Like, do not put your crud on me. And the longer I would go and listen to secular music and just enjoy everything, food, wine, rock music, a party, a bar, I was just like, why is this so bad? I felt like Little Mermaid. You just want to be a part of the world. Right. Why is it so bad? Isn't this neat? It's so confusing to me. I understand there's some things that you want to have some restraint or you want to be responsible, but that comes from education and information, not from withholding it from somebody so that they go out with complete blinders on. And they take the blinders off for the first time and they're literally blinded by the light of everything that's out there. Like the flooding overwhelm, so many people from ex-ATI kids have such a hard time in therapy, have such a hard time socially when they get out. They can't get jobs because they have nothing to show for what they did. I have so many certificates. It's like a notebook full of certificates that I received from IBLP. Guess what? Nobody wants to see that on my resume.
No.
Yeah, no one cares that I got a sewing achievement at Excel. But it's on a really cool paper. You'd think I really did something big. But I just had to say, we were not so much with ATI anymore, my husband and I. I mean, once you're married, you're no longer ATI. You're not homeschooling anymore, and you're not really ministering at the centers unless you really want to go there. But we weren't attending seminars. We were going to a church locally, and even that, I started really feeling myself on Sunday mornings. I'm like, I can't get out of bed.
Yeah.
I started feeling sick, or like I'd have cramps, or I'd feel a sinus infection coming on. And that wasn't me trying to find something wrong. It literally was the things. Like every Sunday there was something, and I finally just said, babe, I can't do this anymore. My body doesn't want to be at church.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know how else to say it.
When the body says no.
She doesn't want to be there. My brain says, well, it's the thing to do as a Christian. And it's the thing I've been now with the impostoring, it just became conditioned.
Right.
So I didn't know how to unimposter myself. I just knew that church is what I did on Sundays. I didn't want to go out to the women's Bible studies and the potlucks and the prayer meetings and the cantata practice. I didn't want to do any of that stuff because that's what I did my whole life. But I still felt this like robotic need that I had to be in the pew. And yet I would sit in the pew and totally tear the pastor apart. And I'm like, really? That's what you think scripture says? Well, this scripture says this. And I would just literally have a mental argument with the pastor while I'm like, what is this? This is such a waste of my time. I don't need to do this. So I just pulled away from it. And I know my in-laws were really upset. They can't stand that we still don't go to church. My mother will constantly try to, guilt me into like, oh, you should find a home church. And I'm like, home is my church. Thank you. And now my husband and I, because we've been doing remodeling on our home since we moved in, and we call Lowe's church because almost we work on Saturdays, and then my husband will be like, oh, I need to go to Lowe's, and it's always Sundays. So one day I was like, are you going to church again? I think you sneak out around 10:30, you go get the donuts and the sermon, and then you come back. And he's like, no, I really do go to Lowe's. So it's just our just funny little joke. And I love that we're able to actually joke about it, because for decades I couldn't joke about any of this. And I didn't start talking about any of this until June of 2020.
Wow, that's really recent.
I refused to talk about it. I refused to admit that it was my life. I went from impostoring in religion to impostoring in the real world. And I just had to pretend that I was like everybody else, even though I knew freaking nothing. And I chose to become a makeup artist and a hairstylist in the fashion industry with no context of anything. I mean, I was a total nutball. Like, who the hell does that to themselves? But I did. And so I was so grateful that smartphones came on the scene, because if someone was like, hey, let's do something with Joan Jett, I'm like, get to the potty. Sorry, I got to go to the restroom really quick. And I would just like Google Joan Jett, and be like, whoa, she's cool. And then I just go through a little deep dive real quick and be like, oh yeah, I got this. Okay, yeah, I see what this is. And I could mimic it with my own twist on it, especially because I had no other influence. So I'm like, yeah, let's just go wild and see what happens with this, So just oddly just jumping into the deep end of the pool and hoping that my floaties work.
Well, it sounds like you've integrated. Like, I know that there's a lot of talk about integrating your mind and your body, or your voice is integrated with your experience of what's going on, rather than disassociation or being separated, and even integrating who you were, right? Or how you were raised into the life you have now, which is so powerful. Because I know, like, I've done therapy, I've done talk, but I'm moved by your story. And so it's just, it's good for our listeners to hear that, it might be a lot to talk about. It might be triggering. It might be all of that stuff, but we need to hear our stories. Yes. Our stories need to be told. And it's even what, PJ was saying, it's not just about speaking. Sometimes it's about having somebody listen.
Yes.
And how powerful, and we can do that for each other. But I love the integration of your old self with your new self. And, and could you speak into that a little bit more? Like, I know you already have, but in the ways that you could integrate your body, you were saying that there was a disconnect, even kneeling and having this sensory overload, but yet not doing anything. Mm-hmm. So in what ways have you healed or on the journey to?
You guys are so kind and wonderful. Thank you, first of all, for hearing my story, because it is very strange still to speak it out and have so many compassionate people listening to it. Because the narrative I had in my head before I would ever say anything to people was that they would judge me and then they would ostracize me, that they would be like, oh, you are a Christian in a cult. Bye. They wouldn't even give me the chance to say more. And I've been just blown away by the fact that people have just been so interested in the story. And then also curious, like you just said, about like, how am I who I am now? And some days I wake up and I'm like, how am I how I am now? Like, even I ask myself the question. I'm like, girl, how did this happen? How did you get to now? And I mean, I'm also 23 years away from it. And so that's a lot. And I've gotten all the hard knocks possible that one could get in the world. Like I said, I chose to get into a really hard industry, and it definitely shaped me. And New York was the hardest place I've ever lived. I was there for 10 years, and it beat some of, in a positive way, it beat some of the like submissive, demure, indecisive Lindsey out of me. And I was obsessed with that transformation. I was like, oh my gosh, I can walk into a deli and I know exactly what I want. And I'm like, oh, this is an amazing feeling. I'm not sitting here trying to decide things. I know what I want, but it's only because I've been chasing what I want now for over 20 years. It wasn't until I read my journals that I realized just how bad the past was. I think when you push it away and you stuff it somewhere in a closet, you know the closet's bad and you don't really want to go back there. But when I started reading those journals, I was like, okay, I have completely different perspective now on this. This was horrific. And I'm glad that I didn't know how bad it was when I was in it.
Yeah.
Because I think that if I had truly been capable of understanding the depths of its insidiousness, I don't know where I would be right now.
Yeah.
And so I think that, kind of a different perspective is just that the naivety in a way also protected me from who knows what else I would have done to myself. But therapy was what one of my best friends was really nudging, but also pushing me to get into. And I wasn't really sure that I wanted therapy because Bill also teaches against therapy. It's secular and it's going to, somehow give you the wiles of the devil. Well, I wasn't afraid of the wiles of the devil. Let's be real. I was really afraid of just someone not understanding. How do you explain IBLP and ATI to anybody? Well, first of all, for all of you listening, you now have a docuseries and they can go watch the 4-part series before you enter into your therapy session. It will help greatly. But I ended up, the universe brought a therapist into my space, and I wasn't even sure that I wanted to work with a therapist at this point, but, and also she was a Christian. And I was like, you are every red flag. You're a woman, you're a Christian, you're a therapist. Like, you are just like the sworn enemy of my mind. And for some reason, I was just like, you know what? But you are reaching out to me, and women don't ever reach out to me. So I was like, I'm going to give this a chance. And she's an EMDR therapist. And we very quickly jumped into EMDR. And I've been doing that for the last two years or so. And it was the most incredible fast track of therapy, I think, ever, because I've heard so many stories where people say, I've been in talk therapy for 10 years. And I'm like, is it a family therapist or a trauma-informed therapist? And they're like, well, I don't really know. And I'm like, you should find out. Because if you've gone through religious oppression, physical abuse, mental and emotional abuses, you need a trauma-informed therapist. They know how to handle these situations and how to get through to your mind, to be able to work those traumas out. But therapy was hard. And I can understand why a lot of people run from it or say like, oh, I did a few sessions, I'm really over it. And I'm like, well, that's a give up attitude. Like someone's literally handing me the cure to my mental and physical cancer. And I'm just gonna be like, never mind. I'll just keep on until it, wears me out. I don't have time. I want the rest of my life to actually be mine, because the last 40 years or so were not mine. Even these 23 years that I've done what I could, I was still carrying all of the boulders and all of the misunderstanding of everything. Mine is more of physical and emotional conditioning than it was an indoctrination of Christianity per se, but it was still indoctrination to a degree. But my conditioning was in the human behaviors, how I react or understand or assume things about people, and especially in my anger. I don't get angry at people. I just stuff it down somewhere and I'm like, well, I misunderstood again. I pull myself into being a victim, and that's not because I love to be a victim, but I didn't know how else to navigate that. And again, because the rage was really the one big thing I was never allowed to express ever at all. I was very afraid of myself. That if I did get angry at anybody, I was going to ruin them for life, because the words that come through my head when I am enraged, I mean, I just truly do feel like I have completely toxic acid in me that will just spew out and destroy people. But it was interesting. My therapist actually pointed out that anger and rage is the emotion that propels us to make change. That's right. And if all we're doing is stuffing it deep down inside, things will not change. But we are taught, I'm sure you guys know about the BITE model, BITE, from Stephen Hassan. It's really focused around cults and high control. But behavioral control, intellectual control, thought control, and emotion control. And there's many different markers underneath those headings. But all of those controls, behavioral control, emotional control, your thought control, like it is amazing the amount of conditioning that those controls will put on someone. The thought stopping techniques. Oh, I'm really angry. Oh, nope, I shouldn't be angry because that's what God wouldn't want that. And I'll get spanked if I do anything out of control or out of line. Well, you've just self-policed. Yes. And after a while, that's all you do is you self-police. No one has to even control you anymore. You don't even need a predator around. You've become your own predator to just like, nope, you can't do this. Nope, you shouldn't. I have goosebumps everywhere. You shouldn't be doing this. How dare you think that? And you will keep yourself in that line of perfectionism and whatnot out of everything you've been conditioned with the spankings, with the indoctrination, with the parental controls, with the feeling so totally isolated and kept from everything. How would rage not be a part of how you feel?
And the self-police is also a bit of, it's what you know. There's a comfort, a weird sense of comfort, which I completely get. Like I get, but I also don't get. It's like, well, why is that comforting? But
I still feel drawn back to that fundamental Bible thumping church because it's still home. Like, it's still that foundational, what I was taught. I don't know.
I would say when I haven't talked about this much, but I wrote victim impact statements to my parents. I couldn't see any other way of communicating with them as I was going through therapy because the depth of egregious behaviors were so great that I couldn't have a relationship with them anymore. And I feel very firm in that. There's so much work that they have to do and admittance and ownership that they have to bring on themselves, that until they get to those spaces, they're not safe for me. They're not safe in the fact that they're not trying to, but just the fact of hearing their voice will trip my own behavior system into submission or into compliance or into dismissal or something. They're not safe. And so it was really hard for me to write those. But in doing that, I really claimed my voice of exactly what I know to be true that happened to me. Now, in writing those, there was a response from my father. He sent me a message about 3 months later. It was an okay message, but it wasn't what I needed to have to feel safe. And so I said, I received it, but at this time, I'm not interested in carrying on a relationship. My mother, I've not heard from since. And I wrote these in April of 2022.
Wow.
I also read them out loud to them on the phone before I emailed it to them because I wanted them to hear my controlled voice, that I was not yelling at them.
Mm-hmm.
And if they would think that I was like wild banshee off in the bushes, it's just like, no, I'm very controlled and I know what you've done. And so I started having these very crazy reactions, like you were saying, where you're like, I just want to go back to the fundamentalist church, or I feel like I need to go and see people or whatever.
Yeah.
I kept having this need, like this crazy, almost addiction feeling, like I need to get my fix or something. Like I need to contact them and say, you know what, I know it was harsh, but I hope I need to placate, I need to plead. And I went to my therapist and I'm like, what is happening to me? Like I literally looked up the meaning of Stockholm syndrome, and I swear that's what's happening.
Right.
And so we talked about it a little bit. And she's like, that's exactly what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, you have a Stockholm syndrome. I'm like, but why would I even do that? They were so awful. But that's your formative years.
Yep.
Those are the people that provided for you, the expectations that you still hope they'll somehow fulfill. And I have always said this, the axe forgets, the tree remembers. I will never forget what they did to me and Bill, but they'll forget. That was 10 years, 15 years of their life in a place where they were probably really conflicted. Now they're out in the world doing whatever they want. They weren't hit. They weren't hurt. They weren't educationally denied. What do they know about the existence I have? So there is a massive cognitive dissonance for them in their resistance and denial of what I've been through. They don't want to show empathy. They don't want to get down into my emotions to understand my truth. I can't respect
dangerous.
it, and I'm not safe there.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's dangerous for them, I think, because I think that would be worldview shattering.
Yeah.
Which is a hell of a, like obviously you've done the work and we've done the work and we're willing to have our worldview shattered.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine somebody who has predatory instincts or even has behaved like that would want to have their worldview shattered.
Well, they're not interested in it.
It's sad because at the end of the day, I've had to come to this acceptance that then they don't love me, because that's not true love. True love does not turn a deaf ear to someone who is crying out for justice for themselves. They don't. I could never. If any of my friends told me that I did something egregious to them and they sent what I sent to my parents, I would be doubled over with emotion.
Yeah.
And I would just say, whatever you need from me, I will do, because I love you so inherently. And you can tell me you love me, but you're not proving it in your actions. And that just continues the narrative of your hypocrisy from day one. Well, it's hard. I know that I probably sound a little callous in saying this, but I feel very firm in it. To me is truth. It's the black and white again of it. Like, prove me wrong and show me you actually love me. Do something. And there's nothing. It's just radio silence.
Not that long ago, we did an episode on repentance and repairing relationships. And the first step toward that, we took it from a book on repentance and repair is the name of the book,
by Rabbi Danya Ruttenberg.
And the first step,
very good.
The first step, she says, is to name and own the harm. And so if you're a victim and the perpetrator can't do step one, forgiveness is, I think, step 3, like to ask for forgiveness. You can't even ask for forgiveness until you've done step 1 and 2. And step 1 is the most powerful, which is they have to name and own the harm to the point where you understand that they understand what this has cost you.
Yeah.
So I love that you're able to sit and be able to protect yourself, because until they can do that, or unless they do that, not only are they not capable of step 2, 3, 4, 5.
There's a lot of steps in this process too, which is,
well, I think there was 5.
I mean, that's healing in general, isn't it? It's not just one thing and then everything's great. I mean, it is a process when you're trying to recover from harm and abuse.
Well, and especially because they often will say, well, why can't you forgive me? Why can't you forgive me? And it's like,
that's easy, isn't it?
It's, well, yeah.
And that's the Darvo again.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, why are you holding
right.
on to it? Why do you have such a cold heart? Why can't you move on? What do you?
Yes.
Darvo,
Yeah.
right?
I've heard the conversation of, I thought we'd already moved past this.
Of course.
I'm
Yes,
like,
this is your part. This is your fault. This is your issue.
Clearly,
Yeah.
we haven't.
Yeah.
So maybe you need to get a grip that you weren't off the hook, because it was too much. And we constantly had to forgive. Yeah, you're so right. Like, us for restoring the relationship, it was like, if we were disciplined in anger, my dad would go to a seminar or something and come back and be so convicted, and he'd cry crocodile tears. I mean, I never saw him cry ever except for this, and like, so sorry, I'm disciplining you out of anger, and I'm just allowing myself to be an angry man, and that's not right in the eyes of God. Will you forgive me? And we're all just like, yeah, I'll forgive you. To get out of this awkward situation of watching your father cry oddly, but give it a week and he's doing it again.
Well, and you're still being asked to meet his needs. I feel like shit. So help comfort me and make me feel okay. Tell me I'm okay. Tell me you forgive me. Did he name and own the harm? Nope.
No.
Did he say, I scared you? I hurt you. I frightened you. I made you feel unsafe. I didn't listen to you. I made assumptions about your intentions. Nope. None of that. Just forgive me. Make me feel better.
Girl, if any of those words came out in that order from either of my parents, I'd probably faint.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's so much awareness in those words. And that's what they lack. They lack awareness, because their only tether to reality, or their own reality, is the perception they have from IBLP. And that's it. Like, my parents are so proud of me as a makeup artist in New York and LA. It must be all that character that I was raised with that helps me to be such a good artist on set.
Right.
No, I'm sorry.
Pat themselves on
I had
the
to
back.
get a high school equivalency test, which was one of the most terrifying things I ever did. And then I had to go through cosmetology school. And for both of those things, I barely passed all of the written tests. I aced the hands-on, but all of the written tests, I mean, even just testing, I hate trying to get a driver's license. Like, it is weeks of anxiety ahead of time, because testing is lost on me. We weren't tested as kids. So I'm like, you're even dismissing, and you're dismissing what I've had to do, and you're denying me the pride of what I've done.
Yes, it can't ever be about
constantly ripped away from me, no matter how hard I try, or no matter how many things I try to say. Now, trust me, I'm not successful because I'm trying to prove to my parents that I'm a great, successful person. It is separate from them. I don't look at my parents and go, thank goodness I had them, because that's why I'm so successful. Not once has that ever crossed my mind.
No.
But I'm so shocked that they think that what they did is why I'm so great.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, you need to really
still robbing you of your voice, still
Always.
robbing you of your authentic self. Like, what my favorite part, and you wouldn't know this because it hasn't been released yet, but the podcast that we did about this shiny happy people, one of the things I said in there was that I had a favorite part in the series, and my favorite part was this line, it was you said, "This is my life. I made this. I made this for me. No one told me I could or couldn't." And you break down, and that was it. I was done. I was like, this what they just did in this moment, this is what this is about. Because you found your voice, you hit that, you gave yourself permission despite all the training, all the predatory bullshit. You fought your way to use your voice, and you made your life.
Yeah.
And that to me was the whole beauty of that, of all of it. So I thank you for that moment, because that was such a special moment to me.
Lindsey, this has been so good.
I appreciate you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so tell everybody how they can find you online.
Well, for all the culty stuff, you can find me on TikTok and on Instagram at The Cult Chronicles.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I'm the same on both. Oh, and also on Threads, but I'm not sure what that is still. So under advisement. But if you're curious to my hair and makeup career, you can check that out at Crazy Pretty over on Instagram. And my website is crazypretty.com. That's my real life now. That's what I do for real.
Good.
That's not impostering.
I love it. Thank you for joining us. It
was incredible.
It has been an honor, and just we value your voice, and I know that our audience is a lot of survivors and a lot of people who've taken a lot of shit from prey or from predators, and who are very beautiful, strong, amazing prey and
powerful. We do this hashtag prey power. Love. So that's what we're trying to extend to the world. So please use it.
Absolutely. Thank you again for giving me this space and platform. I know the docuseries had such limited time to really expand on a lot of our stories. And so it's been really exciting to get out and share with other people. And I've done a lot of different interviews, and every one is so fascinating because everybody asks different questions. And you guys have been really exciting. I feel like all your questions were very unique and very different. So cool. It just shows me how deep you were into the docuseries itself too. Yeah. So thank you for that love and care. And obviously your connections with the religion itself and, having high control religions in your life. So I'm happy to be a powerful prey.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lindsey.
Thanks,
and
Lindsey.
if anybody wants a season 2 of Shiny Happy People, please
write to Amazon.
Yes, let Amazon know.
Let them know
all their socials. Hit up all their social medias, DM them, tag them, all the stuff.
Brilliant. We need more praise voices.
Yes.
Thanks, Lindsey.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.